Okay, I opened the project for this episode and I typed E200-Brad-local.
Wait, you put E? I guess you do put E in front. That's why I'm alphabetically first.
I started putting E at the very beginning when we thought there might be S's. By S, I mean season. We were like, hey, what if we do like
Yeah, we'll do a hiatus every once in a while and just call it a new season. That sounds great.
So someday we'll be on like season 3. We'll never get to episode 200 because the E's are going to reset when the S's roll over. And then we ended up never doing seasons. And now here we are, 200 episodes.
Well, I think we have to do seasons when we get to episode 1,000, because if we go to 4 digits, then it's going to mess up our ordering will be bad.
I already ran this exercise once when I had to go add an extra leading 0 to episode numbers to get them to sort correctly.
Yeah, we should have done this at 100 in retrospect. Well, welcome to the end of season 2.
That's right.
Brad and Will made a tech bot. I'm Will.
Tune in next week for episode 1.
Yeah, so we're going to do something on the Patreon episode this month for the 200th episode. We're not going to do a musical episode or anything like. I did that once. It was a bad idea.
Yeah, I thought about doing some kind of retrospective episode this week, but that maybe seemed a little navel gazy.
Yeah, and also there was kind of a lot of stuff that happened this week. So so we're going to do this week. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's been, I can't believe it's been 4 years, Brad.
Dude, what happened? I think the pandemic happened. Actually, that's what it is. Like I started to say, like, how the hell has it been 4 years? But then it's crazy to think back. I think it was August 2019. I believe it was August, September. So like, it's crazy to think that we got maybe half a year into this podcast at most before the pandemic happened, and everything since has been work from home. So it kind of warped time in that respect.
Yeah, because we talked about this for a long time. Like we talked about this when I used to come on the Bombcast and we would talk about nerd tech stuff, and everybody else in the room would kind of glaze over, and Ben would take a nap for a little bit. And then like the audience, the people would send us Twitter messages, or sorry, tens, and post comments, be like, hey, I really love it when Brad and Will talk about tech stuff. And I
can't, I'm sorry. I know you paused because I'm making a face. I can't let tens go unremarked upon.
Yeah. You know, the website formerly known as Twitter, 10.
Yes.
You're posting tens, you're tenning, you're re-tenning. Some people call that a 20.
Operating system 10. Yes.
Yeah. No, it's OS X, Brad.
Oh, fine. Anyway, you were saying.
So yeah, like we talked about it for a long time. We talked about it for like years, I think, really. If we're being factual and honest.
Yeah, so I was always excited every time you came on the Bombcast because I was like, man, this is the week I get to talk about graphics cards for 20 minutes.
Well, yeah, and then we took a while because neither of us wanted to do a news podcast, really, like another news podcast, because I think at that point we were both doing. I mean, you were doing Bombcast still, and I was regularly on This Is Only a Test, which is about news, and it kind of took us a while to get to the idea of just doing a single topic to kind of dig a little deeper. And we've wandered here to and from that over the 4 years in between, but it's still usually a single topic unless we get buck wild.
To our best effort. Anyway, thanks everybody for sticking with us this long. We're doing exactly the thing we said we weren't going to do. We're retrospecting right now.
Well, I think on the Patreon episode, we're going to dig in and like, I want to talk about like favorite episodes. I'd love to hear comments from people who hear this and are like, oh, I have favorite episodes. Like for me, there were like when we had Kishore on at the start of the pandemic to explain the Rona to us. And when we lost power for a week because of fires and built, 72-hour plus kits, and like talking about why the refresh rates are 60 hertz in North America, is like figuring that it's just been, anyway, I have high points, and we'll think about it. We'll do a Patreon episode about that. But I guess now we should just probably start the show, right?
Let's podcast.
Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I'm Brad.
Brad, you should end every cold open with "Let's podcast."
Let's podcast. Is that my catchphrase?
Yeah, that's it. We did just Brad soundboard. Let's podcast.
It's only taken 17 years of podcasting, I think, is when I first was on a podcast in 2006 to come up with a catchphrase.
Good job. You're doing better than me. I still don't have one.
Well,
good night and good luck.
There you go. Never been used before.
I've never heard that one before. Everybody under the age of 100 will not know that one, so we're probably good.
Actually, people are aging out of these references. We can just steal them and nobody will know.
Yeah, next I'm going to talk about pitching woo. We're going to tie an onion to our belts. We can get all of the 20s references are coming back. I'm going to start wearing high-waisted pants with pleats, pegged cuffs, all of that stuff. Spats.
Whoa.
This week, so we don't do a lot of new stuff, but it is new iPhone week. They announced new iPhones this week. They're kind of underwhelming, and also Unity went buck wild this week. So I think we should start with the Unity stuff because it's kind of the big news.
We're kind of on an Xlander break this week, but I was still looking at Twitter and trying to keep up with news stuff. And oh my God, like I have never seen game developer Twitter this united and this furious and this like intensely discussing anything as I have this.
Yeah, so the basic deal is that Unity changed the terms of their agreement, and it seems like they're changing it in a way that it doesn't just affect games that aren't signed. So we should step back. The way game engines work right now is like if you want to make an Unreal game, you can download Unreal, you can sign up to be a developer for free or like $90 or something. It's basically not very much money. You get the engine, you can make your game, and then at some point when you're like, oh, I think I might actually sell this for money, you theoretically should, you don't have to do this, but you should call somebody at Unreal and be like, hey, I have a game that I would like to ship and I would like to talk to you about the terms of my deal. And then you can kind of negotiate a little bit with them depending on who you are and how big your game is and whether they like you, I guess. I don't know about like the specifics of how payment works, how recoup works for the engine, all that kind of stuff. My assumption was that this was only going to impact Unity games that hadn't yet signed a deal with them. But it seems like it's going to hit everybody because Unity's buck wild now, and they're just getting crazy up in there.
It is retroactive to the beginning of time, as far as I can tell. We should say what it is.
Yeah. What are they doing, Brad? What's the bad thing that they did? What did Unity do bad?
The change that they are implementing is they are going to start charging developers for like per install of their game.
Yeah,
they're calling it a runtime fee, which is just sounds like a way to dress that shitty concept up in fancy language.
So there's a Simpsons about calling a tax raise a rebate adjustment, a negative rebate adjustment or something.
Exactly,
it's very much in that vein.
Yeah, I mean there are thresholds. Like it's they have a FAQ here. I can actually pull up the table real fast. It's like first of all there are tiers of Unity. There's the Unity Personal, I believe, is free, right? Or it's just
on a monthly basis. You still have to pay if you sell stuff with it.
And then there's like Unity Pro and Unity Enterprise, which you pay like I think per seat for. So depending on which of those tiers you're on, there are different thresholds. Like for Unity Personal, if you have made I'm trying to read this table. If you've made $200,000 off your game in the last 12 months and you pass 200,000 installs lifetime, then you're going to pay 20 cents per new install thereafter.
So 200,000 installs is a lot of installs in paid software terms. Like if you have a $10 game on Steam, 200,000 installs puts you well in the top 1% of probably Steam games.
Sure. Well, real quick though, are you equating installs to users there?
I am equating installs to users because most games get installed somewhere between 0 and 1 times.
Yes, that's sensible. I mean, it sounds like now they have walked things back to the point that they are also doing that. But initially, this was just installs. When they first rolled this out, they explicitly said, this is just installs. If one user installs the game 200,000 times, that hits the threshold. It sounds like they have now walked that back.
Yeah, that was pure insanity. The fact that they weren't that it presumably counts piracy installs. The big thing is that it hits free to play installs. So if you have a free to play game, originally it seemed like it was going to hit demos and like trials and stuff like that. I think they said Game Pass. A couple of studios came out and said, hey, we have a game on Game Pass. Only the first 2 million downloads are going to be free, and then after that you got to pay. It's a really it's a spectacularly stupid idea given how the Unity, I mean, it's great for Unity, I guess, but it's a stupid idea given all the people that make games and the kind of games that get made in Unity these days, which are there's a lot of mobile games and there's a lot of free to play stuff and there's a lot of demos too. Like like stuff that it's never even really going to come out commercially, probably, or will be very inexpensive if it does, like a $2 itch.io game.
Yeah. I knew Unity was big in mobile. I didn't realize how big it was until this happened this week. And I kind of got the impression, I mean, I'm sure there are Unreal games in mobile as well, of course, but like I almost got the impression Unity is like kind of all the mobile games. I mean, not all of them, but
Unity is much lighter than Unreal is for mobile stuff. Like if you have a graphically intensive, like a racer or something like that, it could be Unreal, but the vast majority of 2D games are either Unity or some other. They're not Unreal based. Like if you want to make a 2D game that eats battery, do it in Unreal, is my understanding. So they announced this, and then the thing I read, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm going to say it because it's really stupid and makes Unity sound stupider. And I don't like John Riccatello, it turns out, is they didn't have a plan for how to track this when they announced this, and then they had to go to the platforms and be like, "Hey, Microsoft, hey, Valve,
okay,
you guys can tell us how many times these things are installed, right?" And my assumption is they got the finger from all the platforms.
Hang on, just to be clear, you're saying that all took place after they announced this rollout? Because like one of the bullet points I wrote in these notes are, what are the ways they can track/enforce this? And then I listed some that we will go through, but like I assumed at least on the back end they knew how they were going to try to
So I have seen the story told multiple ways in multiple places. God, but yeah, so because like they couldn't go out with that early because somebody would have leaked it.
Sure.
And
I guess it's too explosive.
It's too explosive. Yeah.
What the hell, man? So okay, should we talk through that stuff then? Like there are two ways that I assume they could approach this, and maybe they would use both. Number one, some kind of phone home mechanism built into the game client.
Yeah. Or the libraries. Yeah.
The tracks, it
installed at runtime, at compile time. Yeah.
Calls home to their server when a user fires up a game for the first time, and counts that toward your install total. And then the other one is what you just said, which was go to the platform holders and ask for download numbers from them. But it seems like, I mean, I would assume at least like somebody like Microsoft would probably play ball, but it sounds like maybe even they wouldn't. But there's also like GOG, which is very anti-DRM. There's like Itch, which is very indie focused. I assume Apple would probably not necessarily be down with this. Like it seems like it would be hard to get compliance from all the platform holders in the best case.
I don't think any of the platform holders I have access to report downloads currently. I think they report the users and active users, meaning users who've installed the game and played it. But I don't think they report downloads.
Interesting. So if they localize the reporting into the client with the phone home stuff, like that seems ripe for just being cracked or defeated by intrepid cracker type people.
Worse, used maliciously
to
generate a couple of 100,000 installs and cost your people fake installs and cost your indie developer who has gone woke to go broke.
Yes, well, that's the other end of this. Well, actually, there are a lot of ends of this that are bad, but like the abuse. We'll get to the abusive stuff in a second, but I don't know how effectively stuff like Denuvo is defeated these days. I think some of those DRM.
Some of them are pretty bulletproof, is my understanding.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But
they're also heavy,
right? But this seems like the kind of thing people would then set their sights on defeating. But then maybe they don't allow the game to run. Like I don't know. Maybe they have some way to. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a weird choice. So the FAQ rolled back some of the stuff. The FAQ said, "Hey, we're not going to count demos. Early access games don't count as demos, but." So they still will count toward your total. If you get somebody maliciously attacking your game, we won't count those towards your total. Yeah. Like there's a bunch of hand wavy stuff in here. It seems like the FAQ was written like it seems like they expect to wave it back even further, but I don't know. Axios.
I talked to Unity and published some of what they said. Like they have now told Axios that they are going to limit this to initial installs per user.
Yeah, it's still a bad idea, but at least in that context, it's not the place. If like the post fact change, post Stephen Totillo interview changes stuff makes it more to be like apocalyptic for mobile developers, but probably not that big a deal for traditional PC and console developers, because they don't like the attach rate for revenue to install numbers for mobile games. I don't pay attention to that space because we don't work in it, but it's like what if 1% of your users give you money, you've done well.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So like,
in light of this policy, like what?
Yeah. So if you have a game that has 1 million paying users, that means you have 100 million, 99 million non-paying users, and you're paying 20 cents for each of them. That seems real. Like, this whole thing seems like John Riccitiello said, wait, we have how many users and how many of them generate revenue for us? Well, we need to make those other, like, we're not giving Clorox to the people who aren't paying for it. We like, why are all these deadbeats out on our games platform when they intentionally pushed the market toward those places over the last 20 years? Because anyway,
yeah, it's hard to know how much stock to put into like various theories floating around on Twitter, but like one thing I've seen is that, I mean, like, obviously Riccitiello is steering the ship and deserves a lot of the blame here, but also some people have been pointing to the fact that Unity went public 4 years ago, was it? I think
2020.
Oh, only three.
Best possible time to go public, right in the middle of the pandemic.
Yes, of course. And their board is now like rotten with kind of Silicon Valley venture capitalist types who are probably just pushing for monetization at any cost.
Well, and then the other thing is the increased interest rates. Like, if they were basing growth on having infinite free money to borrow, then suddenly the money is not free anymore.
So that's the other thing I was going to mention, is that they acquired Weta Digital. They acquired Iron. What is the mobile? They've been on a spree over the last 3 years. Iron Source, I believe.
Yeah, they acquired a hosting company. They've acquired a bunch of other stuff too.
Yes, they've spent heavily on acquisitions. Probably need to make up that shortfall as well.
The weird thing, so they did come out and say that the owners of services like Game Pass would be on the hook for the games on those platforms, without saying how they were actually going to do it.
I'm sure Microsoft is thrilled about that.
Yeah, they said the games issued through charities would be exempt. It just fundamentally doesn't understand this idea fundamentally doesn't understand how the games market works today in 2023, 2024.
Absolutely. It's crazy. Ours ran a story that kind of broke down whether they legally can do this.
I mean, that's a really good question. I think somebody can probably at best take them to arbitration and find out.
I don't think they didn't reach a definitive conclusion here, because I don't think they're, this is not a lawyer writing this necessarily. But
I mean, it's going to require courts to find a definitive conclusion.
But there are clauses in the terms of service over time that do, at least in Unity's view, allow for them to just retroactively apply these things to old games whenever.
Well, so their terms used to explicitly say, hey, you're bound by the version of Unity you use. So if you never take an engine update, you can use the terms on that version of Unity indefinitely. And then they took that out of the GitHub and stopped tracking the TOS changes in the GitHub.
I saw that. Yes.
So yeah, like the thing I feel bad for more than anything is people who have games that are shipping that are suddenly going to be hit. Like, I saw multiple people posting, hey, here's our revenue, here's our number of users. The moment this hits, for like, if we launched this game today and it was the same level of success it was, we would be out this much money immediately, because like making 20 cents of ad revenue is fairly challenging on a user who's not engaged. It will mean that there will be a lot less shitty, like the cost of acquiring a user is going to go up a lot for mobile games, which means presumably we'll see a lot less of those shitty pull the pin to drop the lava on the man ads.
Real quick, something I should mention, another factor I've seen cited for this potentially coming about is the changes Apple made to ad tracking. Was that three years ago? When did that happen?
iOS 13 or 14, I think. Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, I'm sure plenty was made of it at the time, but I don't think I grasped the import truly of that happening. Like, I know Facebook took a massive dive off it. Like, tons of business models were.
We talked about that at the time. It's apocalyptic.
Yeah,
like, it has destroyed the mobile games ad market.
Like well, I mean, whether that's actually a bad thing is maybe open, or is up to a personal opinion, but like, the ripples of that change seem to have been continuing like pretty strongly.
I mean, I think
up to now.
Look, I still think it's a good change. I think that it's probably one of the reasons that Google's search results have gotten bad. It's because when you're making money on ads shown on search results, they have to much more aggressively monetize those search results now. And they're paying much less attention to the actual search and more to the paid content inside them. So yes. Anyway, it's the biggest change. And I still think that's probably the biggest story in tech for this decade so far.
Yeah. Can you refresh my memory? What exactly was the change at a technical level?
Yeah, so they said you can't track on a device level across, like you can only track within, basically it reduces the ability for them to smartly track and associate you with like a Facebook cookie or something like that.
I see.
So they don't know, like if you run an ad inside, Slay the Spire doesn't have ads, but I'm going to say Slay the Spire because I'm looking at it on my Steam page right now. If you have an ad inside Slay the Spire, the person that's buying the ad in that spot can't know that you also have Clash of Clans and Ebony and 4 other games installed at the same time.
I see.
Yeah. So, and it meant that Facebook couldn't track you unless there was a Facebook cookie on the page or a script or something like that. So Facebook can't know that you like, it meant that instead of having one unified profile for each ad network, you had a bunch of little fractured ones, which meant they had a much less good picture of who you are at a system level.
Okay. So from a user perspective, that was a very positive privacy focused change.
It was a great change. Yeah.
Yes.
Also, it really impacted both Google and Facebook, which was in the upcoming corporate wars will be the first blow between Apple and Google and Facebook.
So
I feel bad for people who are making games that were planning to ship on Unity.
Extremely. Or supporting existing games. You know, it's one thing. Yeah. It's bad enough to be midstream on a new game that's not out yet with this happening, but also to have a game out selling and being installed and being hit with this. Like that's almost worse because you've already finished the project. It's out, you know, like.
Yeah, it's going to change people's like user acquisition strategy for existing titles for sure. Because like there's like if you look at games, like the games that you see ads for, there's a certain expectation of churn, like a certain number of users go out, a certain number of users come in. And when you apply additional cost to each of those users that come in addition to advertising and however you get them to play the game, it's going to fuck up a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
If you're multiple years into a Unity project and you're sitting there thinking, God, what do we do now? Do we switch to Godot? Do we move to Unreal? Do we ship on Unity and hope for the best? Like it's a complicated nightmare.
It's been interesting seeing the uptick, and like Unity's been making a lot of unpopular moves. I think we've had like smaller versions of this conversation several times.
We talked about it last week, I think.
Where like Unity will do something shitty and I'll see an uptick in Godot discussion. Godot is probably the most popular open source game engine out there, just for reference. And I'll see an uptick of people, Unity developers on Twitter saying like, oh, time to switch or time to start investigating this. It's been really profound this week for obvious reasons, but specifically I've seen people using the Blender comparison where a bunch of people have been going like, okay, it's time for Godot to become the Blender of game engines. Like, or we need something in that space or in that category to break through and become like the good open source thing that everybody relies on.
Well, and it seems like Unity fucking up at this scale is the thing that will push users. Like there's a thing that we saw talking to all the people we've done interviews with in the FOSS-Pod. There's a commonality that once there's a certain number of people contributing to a project, it starts to snowball at a really assuming all like there's a bunch of back end work that has to happen. Like the code has to be manageable by more than one person and like all sorts of stuff like that. But once you get to that point and you have users using it and contributing code back up and an infrastructure to integrate that code into the engine or into the project, then all of a sudden those open source projects start improving at a rate far beyond what commercial products can do. So
yeah, and the other thing that contributes to the snowball there is like, again, like we've seen with the Blender example, end users become so proficient with the tool that it starts becoming industry standard kind of by default, right? Like a ton of emerging artists now cut their teeth on Blender because that's what they have access to. And so it becomes much stronger that way as well.
Well, and like OBS is, I think, my classic example here because Jim Jim started doing OBS in 2010 because he wanted to stream StarCraft. And at that point, the way you did streaming software was by paying for Wirecast, which was like $600, or I think XSplit was around then for $30 a month or something, $30 a year. And within 2 years, OBS had become the industry standard because it was free and it opened the door for a lot more people to use it. And those people were some percentage of those people were contributing code back up. Yeah. Yes. Because Godot is a project designed for teams that have programmers, my assumption is that people will push code changes back into the engine, because like we had a bug in our game for 9 months, a year, that's prevented us from using a DX12 pipeline, because there's a bug in the VFX renderer for Unreal that they didn't fix until fairly recently. So like, you know, if we could have just gone into the repository and fixed that 12 months ago, we probably would have.
Sure.
Anyway, it's an interesting time for games.
For sure. If anybody from Godot is listening to this and wants to come on the FOSS pod,
yeah, we would love to talk to you.
Please reach out. We would absolutely love to do that.
You all don't check your email that often, it turns out. But anyway, so that's it for the Unity stuff. I feel bad for anybody working on Unity projects. If you're thinking about changing your project over, I'd love to hear from you.
Yes.
So techpod at content.town. We'd love to talk to you about stuff and ask questions.
I should mention, I think the most prominent example I've seen of that, I think it was just last night, Friday night, that this started going around. Megacrit, the developer of Slay the Spire, which you just mentioned, straight up said, hey, we're moving off of Unity. We have invested multiple years into our new project. I don't think they've announced what their new game is.
No.
Slay the Spire's been out for some years.
Long
at this
time,
point.
yeah.
They flat out said, we have invested years of work into our new project, which is on Unity. We are getting off of Unity. Like, we are going to bear that pain. We are going to put in immense amounts of extra work to move to a new engine, because there is no way you can repair the trust that you have destroyed here. Like, that's kind of the lesson I feel like here, is that I don't think there's any walking, even if they came out tomorrow and said, hey, the whole thing's done, we're not doing it anymore. Like, I don't know that they could ever fully rebuild the trust with a lot, because, you know, who knows what other awful policy is going to come down.
Look, all the terms of services say that the company that owns the service can change the terms of service at any time. And the assumption when you sign one of those deals, especially on a project that's like a multi-million-dollar, multi-year project, is they're not going to do anything as stupid as what Unity just did.
Yeah.
Right. Because if they do, like what Unity's bet is, it's going to be more expensive and more of a pain in the ass to change all the projects that are existing Unity projects. So they'll just pay the 20 cents per install. And I think that they miscalculated, because honestly, it's caused people who looked at Godot that I know in the space as a hell, this is an interesting novelty, to be like, oh, this may be the only way we can protect ourselves from these kinds of changes in the future. And if you want to look at the overarching trend for 2023 being, man, centrally owned corporate entities being in charge of major parts of our business infrastructure maybe is bad. It's almost like somebody at Unity was like, you know, we can do something really stupid, because no matter what we do, no matter how stupid it is, Elon Musk destroying 10 is still going to be the biggest story of the year. So it's like the whole rest of the year from January 1st on was a Friday news dump.
Sure.
And like Reddit got stupid, Unity gets stupid, everybody's getting stupid this year.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. I think this is going to keep getting rolled back in, but it'll end in court probably for somebody, because this will destroy somebody's business and they'll be like, fuck it, I'm just going to sue them, and we'll see how it works out. It's
bad. The whole thing's bad.
Well, how do you feel about going from bad to underwhelming?
That's Brad. So it's a cheery week around here.
Yeah. Apple had their big iPhone / Apple Watch / that was it, I guess, this year unveil.
Yeah, they do iPads in like March-ish now, right? Don't they?
They do 2 iPad events. There's the consumer level, and then there's the pros. The pros, last year the pros came out in like October, November or something, but I don't know what's happening this year.
Time to pull up the handy Mac Rumors buyer's guide.
Should I upgrade my shit? So I also realized we never did an iOS 17 / all the supporting OS stuff. And I think that's actually where the interesting stuff is happening this year.
Okay. Yeah. You keep up with that stuff a lot more closely than I do, but I would love to hear. what they have going on.
Yeah, I installed all the betas this week for the phone, the TV, the watch, and the iPad. I don't have a Mac, unfortunately. So
can you install betas on an Apple TV?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So now installing the betas is easy as going to the update page, and then there's a checkbox in there that says get beta updates, and you can check that. It's like, which ones do you want? Do you want developer? Do you want public? Do you want the current version? Do you want the next version?
I wonder if those are vetted fairly heavily. If the barrier is that low to people potentially stumbling into something that might be kind of buggy, like as much as Apple values, like kind of bulletproof user experience.
So they make it pretty clear that you're going to potentially mess your stuff up, but also as they've made the betas wider, the betas have been much better. Like the one that I installed, I'm pretty sure is the final. I don't think I haven't looked at I haven't compared version numbers because I think that just came out yesterday. But usually when you're 5 days out, 5 to 6 days out, then you're on the final unless something weird happens. Since they started making the betas publicly available a few years ago, I would say anything after the first one is probably okay if you're not like mission critical. I wouldn't put it on my phone, but I put it on my iPad, I guess is where I'm at. Anyway, I installed them all. It definitely feels like a woo, everything works better, not a woo, crazy new features here. The lead feature on the iOS page is when you call somebody, you can choose the poster that comes up. It's not just like that contact picture anymore. It's now like a full screen. Like you can do backgrounds, you can half tone it, you can pop yourself out, you can change the font. It's not a big feature, Brad.
If I was going to say if phone call wallpaper is phone call paper, that doesn't work.
It's not.
I'm sorry.
It's underwhelming.
If that's their big leading feature, then was last year was 16 the customizable home screen year?
Yeah,
it was, right.
So that was when they added widgets and all that stuff.
Like that was like a big fundamental. Like, hey, we are changing something that has been exactly the same for 10 years.
Yeah, this year is a lot of small refinements. There's a lot of changes in messages for people who use messages differently than I do. Like there's all sorts of sticker stuff you can do, which I think my daughter really likes and I have never engaged with.
That is a very pronounced generational split. Yes.
Yeah. There's audio message transcription. So when you send a voice message, which it's one of my favorite features, actually. I send, like, if I'm traveling and I want to say goodnight to my daughter and she's not around, if she doesn't pick up the phone, I can send a voice message and get a goodnight message from her. She can send one to me. And it'll transcribe those automatically now, which is nice. So you see the transcription, you can also listen to it, which is cool. It has jumped back to the last spot you saw in your conversation across devices. You can reply to messages individually now too by swiping instead of having to like long press or whatever it was you did before. I don't think I knew how to do that. And then there's stuff like sharing. There's more granular control over sharing your location. You can say like share my location for this amount of time from inside messages without having to go to the Find My interface. And they've added a thing called check-in for people. So that's like, hey, send a message when I get to my house, which I think is kind of a nice thing. I don't know that I'll use that, but it seems good. They've also added voicemail and to FaceTime and live voicemail transcription to phones. So like when somebody calls you and leaves a voicemail, you get a little message pop up that shows you the words as they're coming into the voicemail. That seems to work without carrier update, or maybe they already did the carrier update because it's working already on Verizon.
I assume FaceTime voicemails is literally just a video voicemail. That's all that is.
You can send a picture of your cat to somebody on FaceTime, a video of your cat to somebody on FaceTime. Yeah.
Great.
I wrote ick in parentheses after this because like the thing I don't want in my life is more voicemail, but here we are.
Sure. Can I pause real quick and ask about FaceTime etiquette?
Yeah.
What's to you the proper procedure if you want to FaceTime somebody? Is it to send a message ahead and say, hey, are you up to FaceTime? Or is it to just make the video call unsolicited?
It depends.
Okay.
Like we have a standing time for my parents.
Yeah.
Like Sunday morning at breakfast, we usually just FaceTime them. And if they're not around, they just don't answer, which is fine. If I'm FaceTiming somebody that I don't normally FaceTime, it's always, hey, are you around?
Okay.
You want a video call?
That might also be a generational thing because let's say there are some much younger family members around that are quite open to just FaceTiming out of the blue.
I had to explain to my daughter, one of my daughter's friends' parents, what war dialing was the other day.
Huh.
Because I was like, hey, man, your kid, when they want to talk to my daughter, instead of calling once and then sending a text message, is like, hey, call me if you have a minute. They just call 30 times in a row. So her iPad is just going all day long.
That's a form of notification, I guess.
And then they were like, is that not okay? And I was like, no, you can't just call somebody 30 times in a row. What are you, a psychopath?
Well, it does send a certain message, that message generally being, hey, something is very wrong.
Yeah.
The only times in my life I've ever gotten 2-digit numbers of phone calls in a row from somebody, it's because something really bad happened.
It's bad things. Yeah. So anyway, I like that my daughter describes that as war dialing, though. I feel like I've done pretty well.
Good job.
It has a standby nightstand mode now. So when you have your phone sideways on and it's on power, it does like widgets that you can control, which is kind of cool.
That's
I don't know.
Kind of cool. I kind of like that on the watch, honestly. I think the watch's nightstand mode is it's a little bright, but
so this one's very dim, and this one actually shifts red when the room's dark.
Okay, so the watch is green and quite bright, so it's maybe a little disruptive to sleep. But
you can change the brightness on that in the watch.
Oh, okay.
My assumption is that they're trying to sell stands. It works really nicely on my charger stand in my office. I have a flat pad on my nightstand, so I'm gonna maybe move the charger stand from my office into my nightstand and move the pad into anyway. I don't know. They added Zune style bump to Squirt.
I'm sorry, what?
Remember when you had a Zune, you could squirt songs to your friends?
Is that really the word? Is that really the term they used?
Yeah, Brad, it's a perfectly cromulent word. What's wrong with that?
Hang on, I'm Googling Zune Squirt.
Oh no,
right now.
You're going to regret that.
Here is the headline from on Newsweek from 2006. The first result: Zune should go beyond squirting.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So
typing bump to Squirt into this Google Doc now.
Yep. You're welcome, America. You can't put that that can't be the headline, I don't think, because we'll get a different audience than we expect. When you bump your phone to another person's phone, if they have the right version of iOS installed, it'll say, hey, do you want to share your contact card, and which parts of it do you want to share? Do you want to give them your home number? You want to give them your office number? It seems like they've actually added the granular control to make that a thing that I would maybe have used in 2005, but I'm probably never going to use as an adult now.
That couldn't actually require physical contact between phones, right? I'm sure they can definitely measure proximity, I assume.
It's a UWB thing, right? I'm sure.
It's kind of crazy how fast proximity has just become a thing in device pairing and info sharing stuff. I don't want to blow your mind here, but I bought a new television.
What?
And even that television had a hey, to pair this remote, it needs to make sure it's within a meter of the TV.
Hold on. What TV did you buy? The LG?
No.
About the Samsung?
No. Well, so let's say this.
Okay. This will be Q&A. I have questions.
This could be Q&A or patron episode or something.
Okay.
Anyway,
for you, Brad.
I'm sorry. It's been all over the place. I helped my parents pair. I think we may have talked about this. A different Apple TV remote. That one was hey, it needs to be 3 inches away for blah blah blah. The number of devices I'm seeing specify hey, it needs to be in this physical position is going up rapidly.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was helping my parents set up a TV a couple of years ago, and it was hold the remote in this box. Oh no, it was when I was doing sound calibration for something. It was hold the phone in this box in front of the TV, and you just held it up there, and it did the syncing or something. Anyway, yeah, so you could share contacts, you can sync audio, you can share music, you can share play music, so you can listen to the same song at the same time with a stranger on the train, that famous the Wired article that they've expunged from the internet somehow about iPod jacking. Do you remember iPad jacking? It's when you walk up to somebody on Muni and you grab one of their earbuds and you put it in your ear and you give them one of your earbuds and you each listen to each other's songs. And if somebody did that to me, I would call the police.
Yeah, is that actually a thing?
It was a Wired article. It wasn't a real thing.
Gross.
AirDrop partially finishes. If you partially send a file and you walk out of AirDrop range of somebody, it'll now buried in that AirDrop is the information required to send the stuff over the internet when both devices are connected to the internet later, which is really cool. Nice.
Yeah, that's neat.
There's a bunch of AirPod Pro 2 enhancements. but also a couple of things that are applied to all AirPods and Beats. You can do better handoff between devices. So like if you switch from using your phone to your iPad, it is aware that you're using a different device and will change them over automatically now. It gives you an opportunity to not do it if you want, but like it works pretty well. And I think I'm not 100% that it worked this way, but I feel like it did because I have I was listening to music on my iPhone. I switched to using my iPad, and I think it switched to the iPad and music on the iPad when I did that, playing the same song I was listening to before. It just kind of seamlessly transferred. I'm not 100% that's how it worked. I haven't figured out how to test it because if I turn off my phone, weird things happen with music. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They also added a new. So AirPod Pros have 3 different modes, just like normal. They block your ear holes and you don't hear much stuff from the outside. Then they have a noise canceling mode, which is typically good enough that like my daughter can be standing next to me banging a pot and I won't hear it. And then they have a transparency mode, which is basically like pass through. So it previously you'd hear like all the stuff in your room, and it works well enough that sometimes I forget they're in my ears when I have it in transparency mode, because you just hear the world around you like you would. It doesn't sound filtered through a microphone and a pair of speakers, which is neat. They added a thing called adaptive audio, which kind of splits the difference between the old noise canceling and the new transparency, where it brings the background noise down some, like the 2-stroke motor across the street and the car driving by and stuff like that, down a little bit, but leaves the voices more prominent, so you can hear voices.
Sounds amazing.
It's really fucking good.
My girlfriend is a huge like put in earbuds and listen to podcasts while doing stuff around the house person. Yep. And I've also kind of started going in that direction a bit. And like, I'm sure a lot of people know that dance, right? Of just like shouting at each other to try to be heard through each other's earbuds. And it's impossible unless you have something like this. So that sounds awesome. This is finally a reason. This only works on the Pro 2s. It doesn't work on the Pro 1s. And it is a remarkable. Like it works really well. They also added conversation awareness, which means when you start talking, it kind of brings down the volume of whatever you're listening to, or pauses it depending on the app. Like I think Overcast pauses, which was nice. Music kind of keeps playing, but is generally quieter. That sounds great.
And personalized volume adjusts the volume based on the noise around you. And from their keynote and the stuff on their page, I thought these were all one feature that were kind of integrated. These are all individual, and you can turn them on and off for each setting. So like you can have transparency mode or adaptive audio on. You can do conversation, like transparency, adaptive audio, or noise canceling, or off are the 4 overarching settings. And you can turn on the conversation awareness and the personalized volume inside any of those. The adaptive audio is, I think, where I'm just going to leave my AirPods. That would be my guess. Yeah. They added AirTag sharing inside families. So if you put an AirTag in your kid's backpack, they won't get stalker alerts for you having the AirTag in their backpack.
Oh my God. I super don't want to derail this podcast, but talking about AirTags makes me think about that story of Elon Musk's cousin going to the Apple store in Union Square here and buying their entire stock of AirTags.
What?
To move all those servers from Sacramento up to Portland themselves. Did you read that story?
Yeah, I read that story. That's a bad story.
We should talk about that sometime.
Anyway,
what an insane story.
Don't give Elon Musk your social security number and your banking information, folks. Yeah. Autocorrect uses a new language model on the device, so it doesn't have to go to the internet. It's seems better. You get red squiggles on autocorrect on things that it autocorrects. You can see them. And if you can do the annoying thing where you press space to fill in words that it thinks you're going to say next. So all of our messages will sound just like everybody else's messages soon. And then let's see, it has a don't hold your phone so close to your eyeballs nag to keep you from going blind. It seems like a better solution would give you hey, you've been looking at your phone for 3 hours. You should go touch grass for a little bit. But I don't know. They didn't put that one in yet. And you can use SOS for roadside assistance now, just like, hey, I'm trapped under a rock in a canyon and I'm going to die kind of situations. And they're adding a journal app that's end-to-end encrypted, lives on the device later this year, which presumably will Sherlock an entire category of daily journal apps, because there's a whole buttload of those.
Sure. Does that include stuff like Obsidian that's like more task oriented, or are we talking more just kind of flat text?
I think it's more like the bullet journal and I think the thing it'll hurt is like the daily personal journal stuff, not like the corporate note taking stuff like Obsidian or Notion or whatever. So that's the big stuff in iOS 17. There's some stuff. So there's the watch and the iPad get new stuff too. And the TV kind of got a lot of new stuff this year. iPad gets lock screen widgets this year, which is great. It
seemed weird they didn't roll that out last year, but good.
Yeah, sometimes iPad lags a little bit. Yeah. They have interactive widgets. There's a health app on iPad now that syncs with your phone health app. I can't believe that wasn't there actually.
That one's right up there with weather, which I think weather just rolled out last year. I think finally, like there's still no calculator.
Still no calculator.
Like Apple has always just been so weirdly opinionated about. I mean, stop me if you've heard this one before. They've had weird, strong opinions about what shouldn't be on an iPad, and like the health app not being on there is ridiculous.
Well, the health app is especially rough because if you have a family, install watch, which means you don't have to have it paired with a phone.
Sure.
There's the only way for the person who has that watch to access their health data is to use the parent that watch is attached to's phone.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Another implication I hadn't thought of is that I believe they store all the health data in the secure enclave on the newer stuff as well. So maybe there were also privacy issues there.
Yeah, I think the iPads have had secure enclaves because I think that's part of the SoC, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Anyway, health app, they did a bunch of work on notes for iPad specifically. You can interact and write and draw on. You can embed PDFs in notes. You can write on them and mark them up now, which is exciting. Cool. You can link notes to other notes, so it's getting more like a Notion-y type, web of wiki style note app than just like a list of things you've written down about yourself. They added profiles to Safari for different browser. I think the intent is that you have like a work profile and a personal profile, but like the dream is that they'll let you have multiple user accounts on your iPad. I would buy bigger iPads if I could have multiple user accounts on my iPad because I would give my kid one. Mm-hmm. Sensitive content warning. This is on across all, actually, this is on iOS as well. But if you get a picture that the machine learning detects, I assume shock images, pornography, people getting murdered, stuff that you might not want to see. It's fuzzed out and you get a content warning on pictures from everything, AirDrop messages, FaceTime, third-party apps. Seems like people are sending AirDrop messages to people on trains and public spaces that have bad things on them. So anyway, that good.
Sucks.
It's like, I this is one of those ones that I'm of two minds on, because I'm sure the processing for this is happening on the device, but I want to know how they make the model for the bad images, because I assume that there's a human cost to that.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
At the same time, I'm also really glad that when my daughter gets a phone and is riding a bus, then she's not going to get airdropped fucking terrible images. So
I think I would just turn off public airdrop.
That's the right answer.
Yeah,
almost certainly. Although because the airdrop stuff, the public airdrop the private airdrop is so generally unusable because most people's Apple IDs aren't their public email address. So most people use like I know your Gmail address, but your Apple ID is probably an Apple Mac.com or Apple whatever. I don't even know what the iCloud.com address, and I don't know your iCloud address. So that means my iPhone doesn't think I know you, and your iPhone doesn't think you know me. But yeah, anyway, here we are.
I think you can you toggle AirDrop on from Control Center?
You used to be able to, but you can still?
Yeah, you can toggle it on. You can toggle on AirDrop receiving with like 2 taps. So maybe that's the compromise, is just turned on when you need it.
Honestly, this is maybe where the proximity thing is actually useful too, because when I need to get a phone number or something from somebody at like one of my daughter's friends' parents, which is where I do most of that stuff now, maybe just touching the phones is the right way to go. I don't know. let's see. They added. That's it. That's basically it for iPad. The watch. They changed the way there's more. The weird thing that I don't know if you actually use it. The thing that lets you have multiple windows like on top of each other, so it looks like a weird Mac instead of an iPad with split screen. I can't remember what it's called.
Oh, I hate that.
Oh, see, I use it kind of a lot.
Like,
but
if you got used to it, I'm sure it could be useful. I have never felt more old person out of touch with technology than when I stumble into enabling that without meaning to, and have no idea how to like detach the windows and get it back to full screen again.
Yeah, it's weird to have a dock on iPad on all your iPad screen, but that's better. I still find it pretty janky. It's a thing I turn on when I want to use, like when I'm doing podcast show notes in the morning and I'm sitting on my iPad with the keyboard. I often will have a browser window and Google Docs window open.
Yeah. If you're doing actual work,
back and forth between them.
Yes,
but that's pretty much it.
Sure.
And then I turn it off afterwards because it eats battery.
What size iPad do you have again?
The 11 inch.
Okay.
Yeah. Or 10.9, whatever. Yeah. WatchOS, the apps are redesigned to use the full screen on the 7 and 8 and 9, which is good.
Not already?
They kind of were. This is one of those changes that like the hiking app shows it, and like they're just doing back work for the apps that they hadn't touched yet.
Okay.
There's a new smart stack, the Siri smart stack thing, which you can put on your phone. It basically lets Siri pick which from a subset of which widgets you want to see. It's really good. Like you scroll the crown and you get the things that Siri thinks you want at that particular time.
That's interesting. Because I just use the home, like the manual kind of home screen dock, whatever they call it, where you just decide which like subset of apps you want quick access to. But
yeah,
if this is good at figuring out what it is you're looking for, that sounds useful.
Like the other day when I went out to go for a walk, when I hit it up, it was like, oh, you do an outdoor walk at this time, so hit the button.
I quite literally, that my entire layout is built around my exercise schedule and having the workout app float to the top as much as possible.
Yeah, it's pretty smart. The control center now, you get to that by hitting the side button. I think you can still swipe up from the bottom. Oh no, that's gone. It's the widget stack when you swipe up from the bottom. But yeah, hitting the button was an easy change. There's a new cycling workflow which lets you trigger the cycling while live activity on your phone. So like if you plug it, when I did this the other day, I plugged my phone into the dock on my bike and I started the cycling workout, and then all of the cycling stuff, like how fast I was going and my altitude change and the wind was like, I was just riding around to the ice cream shop. So it wasn't like I needed to know what my wind was, but it was cool. If you're really into cycling, I can see how that would be useful. More interesting to me is that the watch was able to trigger a live activity on my phone that lived in the dynamic, the notch, the new notch. And that is the interesting, like if they're going to let watch and other apps trigger the dynamic activities in the what do they call that thing?
The dynamic island.
Dynamic island. Thank you. In the dynamic island, that's exciting.
Which I mean, we're skipping ahead. I think are all the phones getting that now? We'll get there.
Yeah, all the phones have a dynamic. Like the island is everywhere now. Okay. The notch is dead, Brad.
Finally, an island getaway is available to everyone. I think we could all use one.
The hiking app they did a lot of work on. It's cool. It seems cool.
I don't think I knew there was a discrete hiking app. Is that separate from? I don't have a hiking app when I look at my watch. Is that something you have to go out and get?
You do no.
Unless it's built into
activities. It's built into the workout thing.
Oh,
so when you say I want to do a hike.
Oh, does that trigger like extra functionality? I always do outdoor walk. I don't typically do hike.
So you get it basically marks the start of the trailhead. It's tied to I don't actually know how you get to it if you're not on the right watch face. I do it on the Explorer. I have it as a widget on one of my watch faces. And when you hit the start, it's like, okay, here's the trailhead, and it locks the GPS in for that, and then it tracks your path as you're walking on the trail, and now it like that's when you hit elevation milestones, and it also marks when you last had cell connectivity and where you got SOS signals if you have an SOS watch.
And that's new, right?
That's new, yeah.
That's awesome. Like that's
hey, I need to go back here to be able to call someone seems good.
Yeah, even in a non-emergency situation, that is super handy to have.
Yeah. And then it also has myopia stuff. They add time spent in daylight with the watch to the you're holding your shit too close warning. I really do think that having talked to my optometrist this week, and she was like, yeah, pretty sure that letting kids spend too much time on their screens is what's making them all nearsighted now. Scientifically speaking.
Interesting.
Was you need to take a break every hour would be a good ad for all devices, probably. Huh. She literally said it's better to watch TV for 15 minutes than it is to spend nonstop time on an iPad at this point for kids.
I don't think I realized there was such a direct causation factor there between.
They told us for a long time that there was not, because they didn't think that was the case. They thought it was genetic, but it turns out that people who like to read often have children who like to read, and people who like to do models have kids that do models, and like watchmakers have watchmakers for kids. And anyway.
Boy. Yeah. Raises some questions about my viewing habits over time.
Yeah. So laying in bed watching shit on your phone instead of watching the TV on the wall is probably a mistake in retrospect.
Thanks.
Anyway, and speaking of TVs, a bunch of stuff on tvOS. You can finally use your TV as the display for a FaceTime call in a non-janky way. Huh. Okay. It just kind of works now. There's a FaceTime app on the TV. You can choose which of your devices you want to use as the camera. Like that seems pretty good. They're adding support for the API for that. It's available. So WebEx is going to have it. I assume this means we'll see Apple TVs in conference rooms before too long. The control center is smaller and like redesigned. And I don't know if I don't know if it's better or not, but it's different. When you use your phone as the remote to connect to the TV, it automatically connects to your Apple TV profile. So theoretically, in the future, when the apps get their shit together and support it, that means I'll turn on the TV in the living room, and when I open Hulu, it'll be like, oh, this is Will. I should just log into Will's profile, or this is Netflix. I should just log into Will's profile. And I shouldn't have to choose whether I pick my profile, Gina's profile, or the kiddo's profile every time we launch an app on the TV. I guess useful. This is good.
Well, that seems like getting toward useful.
I kind of do. Like, do you guys use different profiles? Do you have your own Netflix profile, or do you have a shared one where it's like the mishmash?
You mean between the two of us?
Yeah, between the two.
No, we didn't know. We definitely don't have two profiles for everything.
I wonder if that's something people do when they have kids, so you avoid getting a million Bluey episodes in all your recommendations for everything.
That's been my experience mostly, is what I've seen is like there's an adult's profile and a kid's profile or something like that.
See, we do. Gina and I watch wildly different TV stuff, so we keep our stuff nice and separate.
Fair.
Easier swapping between audio devices. This burned me the other day because literally Gina and the kiddo thought I was dead because I wasn't responding to them, and I had noise canceling on while I was watching a movie in bed.
Oh.
And finally they came in and were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I was just watching a movie." They're like, "We've been yelling at you for like 5 minutes. You didn't hear anything." I was like, "Oh." So maybe be careful with the noise canceling. When you select a TV from your iPhone now, there's an option for find the remote that goes with this Apple TV.
Huh,
and
cool.
it does like the Bluetooth hotter colder thing. It doesn't have the UWB directional dealie yet. My guess is that is in the next Apple TV update finally after all these years.
And then this last one here, I'm just chuckling at quietly.
Look, now that they've added corporate video conferencing stuff to the Apple TV, they need a solution for VPNs. It's the only reason I could think that they would need OS level support for third-party VPN apps, Brad.
No other reason.
Yeah, like if you want to watch your soccer, you got options now.
That's right. That's crazy. That's kind of amazing that they did that.
So yeah, having used this for like a week, all the stuff together, like the story isn't that anything is remarkable. Like it's everything works better together. If you only use a phone, you're probably not going to be particularly whelmed.
Yeah. Yes. A bunch of iterative stuff, a bunch of nice to haves. It sounds like, if any, I'm sure there are a lot of high-level decision makers at Apple listening. Can y'all just build WireGuard into the VPN support at the OS level, please?
If you install the app, it just works. It hooks into the VPN panel.
So I'm being nitpicky here. Like from a user experience standpoint, you're right. It shows up as a VPN connection in the system level, but that's still a user space implementation of WireGuard. So it would be more efficient from a battery standpoint to have it built in at the kernel level.
If you build it in the kernel level, they're not going to give you the level of control over it that you want, would be my bet.
Maybe not.
Anyway.
I don't know. I've had mixed experiences running that WireGuard app in terms of battery drain.
Really?
Yeah, on my iPhone.
Probably because your phone is without the notch, the battery drain is just too. You don't have enough battery in there.
Clearly, powering all that extra backlight. Is
all that non-OLED screen.
Obviously,
the power required to make the home button work.
I don't know. Sorry. We don't have to get into it too much. I've sometimes I've walked around with the VPN just connected passively for an afternoon and it was not a problem. And other times it felt like the battery has dropped 10% in like half an hour. So I don't know what's going on there.
I mean, I think they're selling a VPN product now that's a security VPN is the idea, but not a, hey, I want to watch TV that's not available in my region VPN.
Right. Yes. Or I want to stream my music from home or something like that.
I want to watch BBC, not in the UK and not paying my television fee. Anyway, they also did new hardware this week. It's good. I don't want to say it's underwhelming because it's kind of a cliche at this point, but it was like, this is
that's fun.
This seems like a maybe skip it this year. Like phones are clearly are pretty clearly in the, I should buy a new phone every other year at most era now, I think. Yes.
Unless you're doing something like the Samsung folding phone that Wes came on and talked about, like phones are just kind of phones now, right?
Yeah. I think not having handled the phone, my guess is that so iPhone 15 Pro is a titanium band around the frame now. It's an aluminum body with a titanium. The outer loop is titanium now.
Wait, hang on. Yes, are they not doing the glass back anymore?
The back is still glass.
Oh, okay.
So it's like if you look at the phone, the back, I'm holding my phone up for Brad. The back is like smoked hard glass.
Okay.
And then it's got a metal edge that's pretty much flush with the, you can't see it because it's purple, but
that's the frame.
That's the frame.
I see.
And then the metal bits inside are still aluminum.
I see.
So where it was stainless before, titanium's a lot lighter than stainless.
Oh,
so presumably when you pick this phone up, it's going to feel significantly lighter than it did in previous years.
Interesting. You're still rolling caseless?
I'm naked, baby.
Are you enjoying it? I hate cases.
I put the ring on the back so I have something to grip onto.
Okay.
Mainly because the phone's too fucking heavy.
Okay.
Like I have a Pro Max.
Oh, well then,
because I want the good camera.
Or the titanium might be for you then. It sounds like
I ordered one, but it's not getting here until November because I forgot to do it at 5 o'clock in the morning the other day. Anyway,
I mean, I'm still on my SE3, but like the glass back has always been the reason that I've wanted a case or a cover on there. But maybe the glass is more durable than I think.
So I've dropped this one a handful of times. It's landed there. I dropped it hard enough on concrete to take a chunk out of one of the corners, and it didn't do anything to the glass. It cracked the screen protector I had on.
Oh, wow.
But the glass underneath was fine.
Wow.
Yeah, I would describe myself as reasonably confident in the back glass. Like I have dropped it. Like I said, I dropped it on concrete. I've dropped it on wood a bunch. It's fine.
Huh.
It's been pretty good for me so far.
Does it like passively just scratch the glass a lot just in normal use?
Well, I put the screen protector on just so I don't get those micro scratches.
That was the other thing. I have taken my phone out of the case. I might give it. Oh man, it's so much nicer without that big bulky case on there.
Yeah, the screen protector. I put the screen protector on the front just so I don't like when you put it in a jeans pocket, it has rivets or you have some grit in your pocket or something.
Yeah,
so you don't scratch it up from that. I've broken enough screen protectors to make me feel good about the choice to put a decent screen protector on.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. Like in my mind, I was always like, oh, I should keep the glass as scratch free as I can to try to maximize trade-in value. But then, if you're keeping the phone long enough, what does trade-in value really matter anyway?
I mean, that's the thing. The trade-in value once you go past the second year, I kind of don't think you get enough money to make it worth giving them the phone back. You should just keep it and give it to your kid or use it as a spare or something.
Sure. God, I wish you could repurpose old iPhones.
Well, so that standby thing I think is going to make a neat ambient display for an old iPhone.
Yeah, that sounds cool. A lot of, but and you know what I mean though. Like I'm talking more. I wish you could like install Linux on it or something.
Yeah, well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the titanium band, theoretically, it's lighter. How that feels in practice remains to be seen. They're doing new glass. The glass is harder on both the front and the back now. The toggle switch that's been on the phone since the very beginning, one of Steve Jobs' favorite features, hey, you can make it quiet and look at it and know that it's quiet, is now a touch button.
Actual favorite features, or are you being?
He called that out during the initial iPhone keynote as we have a physical switch on here to let you know that it's quiet.
I see.
Yeah, that quiet has been wobbly for the last few years. Meaning, like there are clearly Apple design guidelines about how you're supposed to interpret that signal for the user. Yeah. Meaning, like Apple Arcade games, if you have your phone in silent mode, don't make sound, right? A lot of other non-Apple Arcade games that don't have to follow their certification guidelines absolutely make sound when you have the phone in silent. And it's like I don't know. It's a little fraught. Like I feel like if you have headphones on when the silent mode is on, you should get sound from the phone. Some stuff does, some stuff doesn't. It's weird. I feel a little bit weird about losing the toggle switch. Also, the fact that now you can connect that to a bunch of different actions, including triggering a shortcut, is pretty nice.
That's cool.
Because that means basically you can do anything you want with it.
And I wonder if those actions, I would assume, maybe vary between focus modes, like in different focus profiles, it can be mapped to different things.
I don't know if they get to that level yet. You can probably do that with a shortcut, if I had to guess, because you can do if loops on shortcuts, I believe. Dynamic Island, which has been kind of a snooze for the first year it's been out with the iPhone 14 Pros, it is now on this. I don't know why I put Dynamic Island here, but you can make them full screen. I think now. I think that's an iOS feature. Maybe it's for this too. I don't. Like I've never used it for anything other than a timer. I don't think like none of the delivery apps I use it to pop up and have like, hey, your food's almost here. When I took 3 flights this year, nothing ever. Well, the Alaska app doesn't use it. Nothing uses it except for Apple stuff. It seems like
that's a shame.
So maybe. Well, I mean, this year it's coming to all the phones. So maybe we'll see. Yeah. Maybe we'll see a little more uptick. The camera, which is usually the main reason for people to upgrade phones, is a 5x zoom now. They did only on the Pro Max, the big boy. They did a bunch of weird reflections inside the device so they can get enough throw on the lens to do a 5x, and it has like a periscope, so there's a prism and a periscope in there that reflects it down onto the sensor. It seems kind of crazy. It seems like you can select your main camera lens in the camera app. So you can say, okay, I want to always start with the 1X, the 2X, whatever.
Oh, cool.
And they're doing 35 mil equivalents on these now, which is an interesting choice. And apparently you'll be able to do spatial video captures for the 5 people that buy the headset, the VR headset next year.
Wait, I wonder if are those kind of format agnostic captures? Like are we talking like volumetric 3D video, and could you use that on anything?
My guess is it'll be encoded like the depth camera is on portrait mode on iPhone 10 pluses, 10s and newer, but I don't know. I don't know that they've released specs for that yet. Maybe they did it at WWDC this year. I didn't pay attention to that. It has a USB-C port.
Yeah, that's kind of that was the big well, maybe not the big question, because it seems like most Apple stuff leaks out of supply chain and accessory design these days.
Yeah.
So I think that probably has been reported by analysts for like a year at this point, but still at some point that was the big question with the EU legislation of, are they going to make 2 phones now? Or are they going to make one for Europe with USB-C and one for everywhere else without? But it seems like they're just going whole hog.
Well, because previously they shipped a dongle, right? Which was the EU would allow, I think. So they had a lightning cable to a dongle that let you use a micro USB thing on it. And now the dongle is no longer allowed. Yeah. It's the typical USB-C thing where it uses USB PD, whatever plus the whatever the high speed that the phone charges at. It only is USB 3.0 data transfers, which is probably as much as the phone can support, would be my guess.
Yeah. What is that? 5 gigabits per second for 3.0.
Yeah, like you could go up to 3.2, but that's essentially you're talking about PCI Express lanes out of your PC at that point.
Sure.
And I don't know that the phone's memory controller can handle that, especially on battery.
I started to say how many people are even doing large scale transfers over a cable as opposed to wireless anyway. But then again, they straight up push the iPhone as a production tool these days. There's a Twitter ad campaign right now where like, oh, Olivia Rodrigo's newest video was shot entirely on the 15 Pro or whatever, so like there are use cases for dumping like high quality 4K video off of a phone.
So having used an iPhone 14 Pro to shoot a long thing at a high res,
yes, we talked about that
this spring, having faster transfer speeds would be nice.
Yeah,
it took a long, like by far the longest part of that process was copying the video off of the iPhone.
That's right. I think you ended up going Wi-Fi to get it off rather than, of course, that was USB 2 speeds over that port, right?
Yeah. So it was way faster doing it over Wi-Fi than it was doing it over the USB 2. The USB 3 is probably, my guess is it'll end up being about the same. You can apparently charge the AirPods off of the phone if you have USB-C to USB-C cable and the new USB-C AirPod case for your AirPod Pro 2s.
It's kind of cool.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. I'd rather just touch the key charger on the AirPods to the key charger on my phone. And I don't look, more flexibility is great.
Yeah, that could be handy in a pinch.
Yeah. Apple's saying same battery life. It's a slightly like 1 to 2% larger battery, depending on which model of Pro phone you get. And it comes in 4 colors and it's basically the same price as it was last year, which is a reduction given how bad inflation has been this year. Good job, America.
Anything interesting with the new SoC? I'm guessing no faster. That's about it.
They're saying the GPU is faster. It has ray tracing.
Yes, there are games coming out. I haven't dug into that too much. I'm going to have to look at that for next week. But like the Resident Evil 4 remake is coming out on iPhone and some other stuff.
Yeah, it's I kind of want to wait to talk about GPU until we actually see real benchmarks from real people, because the way they talk about GPUs is so disingenuous. Like they're trying to make it equivalent to a 500 watt desktop GPU, which is just laughable. So yeah, I'm wait and see on what the GPU actually does, I guess is what I would say.
I don't necessarily want to play. It looks like Death Stranding is one of the games.
That actually that might actually be a good iPad game if you think about it.
I don't necessarily want to play. Yeah, sure. This is not my preferred way of playing these games, obviously, but I can't wait to see some like Digital Foundry breakdowns of performance and what features are there.
Yeah. They're calling, as they always do, it's called the A17. It's a new version of the CPU, the SoC. It has a handful of new features in it. There's new different language models loaded on the tensor machine learning cores. And the benefit that they have is they're doing a lot of stuff on board the chip now instead of sending it to the cloud. That's been the case for the last, I think, 2 phones at this point. The iPhone 15, which is basically a 14 Pro, but with 2 cameras. It doesn't have the telephoto camera. It has the dynamic island. It has the OLED screen. I don't think it has the 120 hertz screen. I forgot to look at that.
Oh, interesting. And that's last year's SoC, like you said.
It's last year's SoC. I would say that this seems like a really fine phone.
Yeah. And none of the titanium, the new materials, I assume.
Yeah, none of the titanium. The titanium is only on the Pro. I'm honestly, we didn't talk about the titanium much. I'm kind of surprised they're doing titanium because it's really expensive. There's not a lot of it. My assumption is that like they're buying bits of old Russian submarines to make these. And it's really hard it's like notoriously difficult to machine. Because it's just hard. It's really hard.
I would love to see, and I'm sure they would never, this is like a trade secret. I'm sure that they closely guard their manufacturing process, but I wonder like what does their kind of materials reclamation process look like on assembly lines? It's like you've got little bits of titanium being shaved off. Like I'm sure they like collect and reuse all valuable metals and stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, they used to show videos of that. So when they did I want to say when they did the first unibody MacBook, maybe they showed a video of like the spindles coming off the side and then getting sucked into the we're going to melt this down and use this again
awesome.
chunks.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. I don't know how that works with titanium. I don't know how you forge titanium. I don't have any experience with that. But all I know is that the one time I tried to machine titanium went the worst of anything I ever tried to make. So
okay,
something to think about.
Yeah.
That's it. They're cheaper. They come in more colors. You can get a yellow one. It seems nice.
Yeah. No mini this year. Was the first year? Did last year have a mini?
No mini last year. I don't think they're doing. I think the SE. I think in the battle of mini versus SE, the old people who don't want to have a notch or and want to keep a home button win, and the mini goes away, which is a bummer because I like the mini. To me, is a good kid phone.
Yeah,
the
I can see
SE is a good old person phone.
Hey, come on.
Look, you got to get the grandparents can't handle learning the new user interface. So once you reach a certain level of brain plasticity, it's bad to introduce new concepts.
I can kind of go either way on the notch at this point, but having a home button, I really like the home button.
I know, but anyway,
I don't want
to give my kid a phone without a home button at this point because I don't want her to get used to a home button.
I get it. Let's just say after I guess they did address this problem eventually, but after long periods of having to wear masks all over the place, not having to deal with Face ID was quite nice.
It's not a problem anymore.
I know.
Yeah.
I like the home button.
And we didn't talk about vaccines. You should go get vaccinated. Now,
yes, they just
new vaccines are out. Yeah,
approved that new one. Yes,
I'm going next week.
Anyway, I should make that appointment. Apparently, the mini did disastrously bad.
It was a tragic amount. Like eight people bought them.
Nobody bought iPhone minis.
Well, they kind of they didn't make it clear what the value proposition of the mini versus the SE was. And the SE was a lot cheaper, as I recall, like $100 cheaper on a $200 phone, $300 phone.
That is the main reason I got the SE is that I don't care that much about phones at this point. And the price to especially performance, like it was the current SoC. It was like the same as the regular phone for like half the price. It was just like, I just want a basic phone that works. And this thing is fast as hell.
I'm curious for people who are still listening, what you've done for your kids' first phone and like when they got them. Like my daughter is starting to do stuff off on her own or with friends now that I want her to have something that's a little more reliable than the watch. And we're starting to think about phones. And I'm curious, what did you do? Like normally I would say do a hand me down, but since I have Gina and I both have the big ridiculous $1,000 phones. I don't think I want to give my kid even a year-old $1,000 phone. So anyway, I'm interested in what people do. Please write in, post messages in the Discord. Last part is the watch, Apple Watch 9, Apple Watch Ultra 2. The big showcase feature is that you can do gestures just with your hand without having to touch the screen for when your other hand is full, or if you're sword fighting or something, I guess. You want to take a call.
Yeah, under the hood, there's a new SoC, which they did not have last year. I guess that's the big distinction, because when I got the 8 last year, and it was basically the same internal guts as the 7, but they're saying like, oh, the new watch SoC is what's enabling these new gestures and stuff.
It's I assume that they're doing by tracking really precise movements in space, but I don't know. I'm curious. That's not available at launch. It comes out in October. You can answer calls, open notifications, play and pause music, all using one hand. So if you're carrying like groceries or something, you can stop your music and take a call. The displays are 2 times brighter than the Watch 8 screens.
That's pretty substantial. I think the Ultra was super bright last year, right? So maybe that's trickling down now.
Yeah, and the Ultra is even brighter than the 9. It's the 8 was 1,000 nits. The 9 is 2,000 nits. The Ultra 2 is 3,000 nits.
Crazy, dude. As the owner of an extremely bright new television that hits, I believe, about 1,500 nits.
Yeah.
I can tell you 1,500 nits is uncomfortable to look at for long periods of time. So 3,000? I know this is out in the sun. Like there are other use cases here. But
I was gonna say the only time I have a 7. I have a Watch 7, which is less than 1,000 nits. The only time I've had problems seeing it is when we're in the desert in the summertime and it's really insanely bright.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing sunglasses. So like you're like to if I'm not wearing if I'm wearing normal glasses, it's fine. I can see it. If I'm wearing sunglasses, it can't get bright enough to push through the sunglasses and the ambient light, basically.
Yeah. That's still nice to have. I don't have a hard time really seeing mine in the sun either, but that's not the worst thing to have.
Yeah. It has a UWB chip, ultra wideband chip, so you can do the directional Find My stuff with it now, like you can with your phone, which means if you can't find your phone, instead of doing the thing where you hit the button and it makes the phone make the noise, you can do the thing where it finds the phone by honing in on the radio signals that it sends out, which is nice. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
The Ultra 2 is the flat face Explorer watch.
Gigantic watch.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get that when I replace the 7.
I looked at that when I got the 8 last year. I kind of went to see it in person. I love the flat face, although I actually don't mind the kind of bubble face on the regular watch now that I've had it for a year almost.
Yeah.
But I do love the flat face on the Ultra. The thing's just so big though. Like it's a comically big watch face.
Do you wear yours to sleep?
No.
Okay. See, I wear mine to sleep, and that's the only thing that's keeping me from getting the Ultra.
Yeah. Also, it was twice the price. That was the other thing.
Well, yeah, and you were also unsure whether you liked the watch last year.
Yeah,
you were kind of testing.
Yes, I was just kind of like, am I going to like this? Like, I fucking love this watch. Like, it is has been life changing in multiple ways. Just in the kind of the exercise and there's all kinds of stuff it has enabled to be better than it was.
A friend of mine asked me the other day if the watch was worth it. And I was like, I will tell you, it is the most quietly convenient, nice thing in my life.
Yeah. I kind of can't believe how many different ways it has come in handy since I've gotten it. And so I have no complaints about the one that is on my wrist right now, but now I'm looking at the 9 thinking I use this thing so much for so many things. And should I trade this one in while it still has max trade in value? That's my question. Is it's about half the cost. You can get about half the cost back.
So you get $300 basically.
No, it's 190.
Oh,
it's not quite half, but it's close to half the price of a new one. I don't know if I'm actually going to do it or not.
So they offered me $155 on the big Apple Watch 7 aluminum.
Okay.
So my strategy on watches is I think I'm going to run them into the ground. I'm at 86% battery life, battery capacity after a year and a half, 2 years now.
Oh, can you check health on the watch? Because you can't on the iPad, or at least on my iPad, which I find suspect.
Oh, well, I'd be worried about that. But yeah, if you go into general battery, there's a battery health option in the watch.
Or is that something that older models just can't track? My iPad is not that old. It's the second.
It's the first
Pro?
no notch one, right?
It's the second Pro.
The last no notch one, yeah.
I think it's the last one.
I thought everything has it in the battery health in the general battery health option.
Maybe it's a bug. I don't know. When I go to the battery page in settings, there is no battery health option.
Weird. It's probably fine.
Sure.
It's if you don't go to the doctor, your blood pressure is fine. There's no bad blood pressure on your record.
I mean, it's 5-6 years old at this point, so it's kind of reaching the end of its lifespan anyway.
I was worried. Honestly, the thing I was most worried about with the watch, aside from battery life, is the scratches on the face.
Yeah.
Getting to the point that it annoys me and I don't want to deal with it, which is why I kind of like the flat design.
Yes.
But it's not been a problem. And like I said, I'm almost 2 years in on this watch now. So
yeah, mine's picked up some minor, mostly around the edges. My mom put a big gash right on her watch face, which would drive me insane. But mine is just a little micro wear and tear that you don't really see.
The stuff you see in bright direct sun, but not in inside.
Yeah.
I got mine when I had to go to the hospital and I was wearing masks before they had the mask face ID, because it was a convenient way to unlock the phone. And it is not carrying my phone with me the entire time I'm inside the house, but having access to phone and notifications and ability to control smart home shit and text my wife and all that is really hyper good. I
was texting my girlfriend from my wrist walking around the house, with the microphone yesterday, I don't even have to go find my phone to respond to that stuff. I use it for 2-factor auth codes.
Yep.
Use it for all the health tracking stuff. I use Apple Pay to buy stuff everywhere by just waving my wrist now at point of sale. Like, it just does a lot.
I always feel self-conscious about using the watch for that. I use the phone for that. I don't know why. Yeah. Anyway, I ordered a new phone. It's not getting here until November. I may or may not I may cancel that. I don't know. But the rest of it, I'm holding off on watches. There were rumors that this was going to be the year they do the big redesign on the Apple Watch and you get an entirely new industrial design on it.
That's the other reason I should maybe hold off.
Yeah. So if you're going to do an annual upgrade, then go for it. But I don't know that I find the watch, like, the watch is useful and I like it and I use it a lot. I don't think it's a thing I need to annually upgrade.
I don't think I would actually really feel any major difference if I got the new one. So I don't think it's probably actually worth it.
Yeah.
Especially if a actually new design is coming next year.
Yeah. That's I'm going to keep holding out for the new design or just get the Ultra. But yeah, so that's it. That's the Apple stuff. That's Unity imploding. I feel bad for anybody who's like, the big takeaway from this week is, God, I'm so sorry if you're using Unity for something that you've spent time on.
That's a rough week.
But I think that'll do an episode for us, Brad.
I think you're right.
As always, Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod is a 100% listener supported show. We're so kind about this. We don't even say this in the upfront. We don't say at the beginning, "Hey man, this is a thing. This is a thing that we only make money from the people who send us money."
We're not like, you know what we do for you.
Yeah, no. We're just here, just casually doing a podcast. And then, by the way,
just chilling.
But if you would like to find out how you can support Brad and I while we make the show, you can go to patreon.com/techpod. Again, it's patreon.com/techpod. And if you used to subscribe and you don't, you haven't checked lately, you might want to go check, because we lost a fair number of people when Patreon jacked some stuff up last month, the month before now, maybe. But you can get access to the fabulous TechPod Patreon, the TechPod Discord, where you can talk to people about incredible variety of topics. It's broader every day. I think we're going to expand the sports section into the sports channel into sports forum soon, so that we can have like all the F1 people off in one section. The college football weirdos can be off in their own space. Yeah. And I assume somebody will talk about baseball in there. Like it'll, and then maybe curling season fires up. I would love for our Canadian listeners, Canadian and Nordic listeners, to get some real hot and heavy curling action in there.
Like, they deserve it.
Yeah.
Seems like the great forums experiment with this week's episode is going well.
I will tell you, it is really useful for me, because when I want to do hey, what tips did people submit episode, there's just a nice collection of them all in one place. So yeah, you can join the Discord. You can come hang out with Brad, with me, with 2,000 or 3,000 of your favorite people. And you can do that by going to patreon.com/techpod. You also get access to the patron exclusive episode, where I think we're going to take a trip down memory lane this month,
and maybe talk about that new TV.
And I have a lot of questions about Brad's new TV that I'm going to have to resist asking now. Like, you all are suffering. I know we teased the TV. I'm sorry.
It's
I'm not going to ask him either. I'm not going to find out what he did.
I'm happy to talk about it. I just didn't want to derail this episode too much.
It was kind of a long episode already. So yeah. And if you subscribe at the executive producer tier level, and we will thank you every single week, starting with Nick Johnston, Paddle Creek Games, makers of Fractured Veil, Andrew Slosky, Jordan Lippett, Bunny Fiend, Whiskey Echo Delta, Gulf Echo 4.0. Oh, that's Wedge 4.0. Joel Krauska, Twinkle Twinkie, David Allen, James Kamek, and Pantheon, makers of the HS3 high-speed 3D printer. Thank you all so much.
Yes,
and thanks for listening to this show. Thanks for hanging out. You got a new out catchphrase? You'd be like, podcast out.
Oh man, I got nothing. There it is. That's it. I got nothing.
See you all next week. Thanks for listening, everybody.